And when the tubs have been collected 3, that's one for her, and for yourself and me, then hang them in the roof below the thatching, that no one may discover what we're hatching. When you have finished doing what I said, and stowed the victuals in them overhead, also an axe to hack the ropes apart, so when the water rises we can start, and lastly, when you've broken out the gable, the garden one that's just above the stable, so that we may cast free without delay, after the mighty shower has gone away, you'll float as merrily, I undertake, as any lily-white duck behind her drake. And I'll call out, "Hey, Alison! Hey, John! Cheer yourselves up, the flood will soon be gone." And you'll shout back, "Hail, Master Nicolay! Good morning! I can see you well. It's day. We shall be lords for all the rest of life, of all the world, like Noah and his wife. One thing I warn you of, it's only right, you must be very careful on the night, once we have safely managed to embark, to hold our tongues, to utter no remark, no cry or call, for we must fall to prayer. This is the Lord's dear will, so have a care. Your wife and you must hang some way apart, for there must be no sin before we start. No more in longing looks than in the deed. Those are your orders. Off with you. Godspeed. Tomorrow night, when everyone's asleep, we'll go quietly upstairs and creep into our tubs, awaiting heaven's grace. And now be off. No time to put the case at greater length, no time to sermonize. The proverb says, "Say nothing, send the wise." You're wise enough. I do not have to teach you. Go, save our lives, for us, as I beseech you. This silly carpenter then went his way, muttering to himself, "Alas the day," and told his wife in strictest secrecy. She was aware, far more indeed than he, what this quaint stratagem might have in sight, but she pretended to be dead with fright. "Alas," she cried, "whatever it may cost, hurry and help, or we shall all be lost. I am your honest, true, and wedded wife. Go, dearest husband, help to save my life." How fancy throws us into perturbation. People can die of mere imagination. So deep is the impression one can take. This silly carpenter began to quake. Before his eyes there verily seemed to be the floods of Noah wallowing like the sea, and drowning Alison, his honey pot. He wept and wailed, his features were all set, and drowning Alison, his honey pet. He wept and wailed, his features were all set. In grief he sighed with many a doleful grunt, and went and got a tub. Began to hunt for kneading troughs, found 2, and had them sent home to his house in secret. Then he went, and unbeknownst he hung them from a rafter. With his own hands he made 3 ladders after, uprights and rungs, to help them to their scheme of climbing where they hung upon the beam. He victualled tub and troughed, and made all snug with bread and cheese and ale in a large jug, enough for 3 of them to last the day. And just before completing this array, packed off the maid and his apprentice too, to London on a job they had to do, and on a Monday, when it drew to night, he shut his door and doused the candlelight, and made quite sure all was as it should be, and shortly up they clambered, all the 3. Silent and separate they began to pray. And Pater Nostrum mum, said Nicolay, and mum, said John, and mum, said Alison. The carpenter's devotions being done, he sat quite still, and then fell to prayer again, and waited anxiously to hear the rain. The carpenter, with all the work he'd seen, fell dead asleep round curfew, must have been, maybe a little later on the whole. He groaned in sleep for travail of his soul, and snored because his head was turned away. Down by their ladders, stalking from on high, came Nicholas and Alison, and sped softly downstairs without a word to bed. And where this carpenter was wont to be, the revel started, and the melody, and thus lay Nicholas and Alison at busy play, in eager quest of fun, until the bell for lauds had started ringing. And in the chancel friars began their singing. This parish clerk, this amorous Absalon, love-stricken still, and very woe-begone, upon the Monday was in company, at Osnay with his friends for jollity, and chanced to ask a resident cloisterer what had become of John the carpenter. The fellow drew him out of church to say, "Don't know. Been at work since Saturday. I can't say where he is. I think he went to fetch the abbot timber. He is sent often enough for timber, has to go out to the grange and stop a day or so. If not, he's certainly at home today, but where he is I can't exactly say." Absalom was a jolly lad and light of heart. He thought, "I'll stay awake tonight. I'm certain that I haven't seen him stirring about his door since dawn. It's safe inferring that he's away. As I'm alive, I'll go and tap his window softly at the crow of cock. The sill is low set on the wall. I shall see Alison and tell her all, my love longing, and I can hardly miss some favor from her, at least a kiss. I'll get some satisfaction anyway. There's been an itching in my mouth all day, and that's a sign of kissing in the least. And all last night I dreamed about a feast. I think I'll go and sleep an hour or two, then wake and have some fun. That's what I'll do." The first cock crew at last, and thereupon up rose the jolly lover Absalom, in gayest clothes, garnished with that and this. But first he chewed a grain of licorice, to charm his breath, before he combed his hair. Under his tongue the comfit nestling there would make him gracious. He began to roam to where old John and Alison kept home, and by the casement window took his stand. Breast high it stood, no higher than his hand. He gave a cough, no more than half a sound. "Alison Honeycomb, are you around? Sweet Cinnamon, my little pretty bird. Sweetheart, wake up and say a little word. You seldom think of me in all my woe. I sweat for love of you wherever I go. No wonder if I do, I pine and bleat, as any lambskin hungering for the teat. Believe me, as any lambkin hungering for the teat. Believe me, darling, I'm so deep in love, I croon with longing like a turtle dove. I eat as little as a girl at school." "You go away," she answered, "you tomfool. There's no come up and kiss me here for you. I love another, and why shouldn't I too? Better than you, by Jesu, Absalom. Take yourself off, or I shall throw a stone. I want to get some sleep. You go to hell." "Alas," said Absalom, "I knew it well. True love is always mocked and girded at, so kiss me if you can't do more than that, for Jesu's love, and for the love of me. And if I do, will you be off?" said she. "Promise you, darling," answered Absalom. "Get ready then, wait. I'll put something on," she said, and then she added under breath to Nicholas, "Hush, we shall laugh to death." This Absalom went down upon his knees. "I am a lord," he thought, "and by degrees there may be more to come. The plot may thicken." "Mercy, my love," he said. "Your mouth, my chicken." She flung the window open in the haste and said, "You have done. Come on, no time to waste. The neighbors here are always on the spy." Absalom started, wiping his mouth dry. Dark was the night as pitch, as black as coal. And at the window she put her hole, and Absalom, so fortunate, framed the farce, put his mouth and kissed her naked arse. Most savagely, before he knew of this, and back he started. Something was amiss. He knew quite well a woman has no beard, yet something rough and hairy had appeared. "What have I done?" he said. "Can that be you?" "Tee-hee!" she cried, and clapped the window to. Off went poor Absalom sadly through the dark. "A beard! A beard!" cried Nicholas the Spark. "God's body, that was something of a joke." "That was something like a joke," said Absalom, overhearing what he spoke. Bit on his lips and nearly threw a fit. In rage he thought, "I'll pay you back for it." Who's busy rubbing, scraping at his lips, with dust, with sand, with straw, with cloth, with chips. But Absalom, he thought, "I'll bring him down. I wouldn't let this go for all the town. I'll take my soul and sell it to the devil to be revenged upon him. I'll get level. Oh God, why did I let myself be fooled?" The fiery heat of love by now had cooled, for from the time he kissed her hinder parts, he didn't give a tinker's curse for tarts. His malady was cured by this endeavor. He defied all paramours whatever, so weeping like a child that has been whipped, he turned away, across the road he slipped. He called under Gervase. Gervase was a smith. His forge was full of things for ploughing with, and he was busy sharpening a share. Absalom knocked, and with an easy air called, "Gervase, open the door. Come on." "What's that? Who's there?" "It's me. It's Absalom." "What Absalom? By Jesu's blessed tree, you're early up." "Hey, Benedicti, what's wrong?" "Some jolly girl like as not has coaxed you out and set you on the trot. Blessed Saint Neot, you know the thing I mean." But Absalom, who didn't give a bean for all his joking, offered no debate. He had a good deal more on his plate than Gervase knew, and said, "Would it be fair to borrow that coulter in the chimney there? The hot ones see it. I've a job to do. It won't take long. I'll bring it back to you." Gervase replied, "Why, if you asked for gold, a bag of sovereigns, or for wealth untold, it should be yours, as I'm an honest smith. But Christ, why borrow that to do it with?" "Let that," said Absalom, "be as may. You'll hear about it all some day." He caught the coulter up, the haft was cool, and left the smithy soft with the tool, crept to the little window in the wall, and coughed. He knocked and gave a little call under the window as he had before. Allison said, "There's someone at the door. Who's knocking there? I'll warrant it's a thief." "Why, no," said he, "my little flower leaf. It is your own Absalom, my sweetie thing. Look what I've brought you. It's a golden ring my mother gave me, as I may be saved. It's very fine, and prettily engraved. I'll give it to you, darling, for a kiss." Now Nicolay had risen for a piss, and thought he could improve upon the jape, and make him kiss his ass ere he escape. And opening the window with a jerk, stuck out his arse, a handsome piece of work, buttocks and all, as far as to the hunch. Said Absalom, all set to make a lunch, "Speak, pretty bird, I know not where thou art." Then Nicholas at once let fly a fart, as loud as if it were a thunderclap. He was near blinded by the blast, poor chap, but his hot iron was ready. With a thump he smote him in the middle of his rump. Off went the skin a hand's breadth round about, where the hot coulter stuck, and burnt it out. Such was the pain, he thought he must be dying, and mad with agony he started crying, "Help! Water! Water! Help! For heaven's love!" The carpenter, startled from sleep above, and hearing shouts for water and a thud, thought, "Heaven help us! Here comes Noel's flood!" And up he sat. With no more ado, he took his axe and smote the ropes in two, and down went everything. He didn't stop to sell his bread and ale, but came down flop upon the floor and fainted right away. Up started Absalom and Nicolay, and shouted, "Help and murder in the street!" The neighbors all came running in the heat, and stood there, staring at the wretched man. He lay there fainting, pale beneath his tan. His arm in falling had been broken double, but there still he was obliged to face his trouble, for when he spoke, he was at once borne down by Nicholas and his wife. They told the town that he was mad. There'd got into his blood some sort of nonsense about Noel's flood. That vain imaginings and fantasy made him buy the kneading tubs, that he had hung them in the rafters up above, and that he'd begged them both for heaven's love to sit up in the roof for company. All started laughing at this lunacy, and streamed upstairs to gape and pry and poke, and treated all his suffering as a joke. No matter what the carpenter asserted, it went for nothing. No one was converted. With powerful oaths they swore the fellow down, and he was held for mad by all the town. Even the learned said to one another, that the fellow must be crazy, my dear brother. So to a general laughter he succumbed. That's how the carpenter's young wife was plumbed, for all the tricks his jealousy could try, and Absalom had kissed her neither eye, and Nicholas is branded on the bum, and God bring us all to kingdom come.